Hello again and welcome to Reel to Real. Tomorrow marks Veterans Day, the annual day focusing on America's veterans, celebrating them for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. Wilbraham's Bob Kelliher served during the Vietnam War. His experience in that divisive conflict negatively impacted his life when he returned home. Steve Kiltonick sat down with the Army veteran about his struggles to overcome the hidden wounds of war.
Through our Lord Jesus Christ.
It's the 8:30 Sunday Mass at Holy Name in Springfield. Choir director Tom Vito plays the piano as cantor Bob Kelliher sings.
Praise for the praise for that spring.
Being able to sing, which is praying twice, has been my therapy, if you will. And I can't think of anything better.
Kelliher is a veteran of the Vietnam War, serving in the late 1960s. Bob made it back without any visible physical scars, but he suffered from the emotional and psychological wounds of war. This is the story of his journey to recovery. It was the 1950s, and Kelliher, one of 8 siblings, grew up in an Irish Catholic household in Springfield's Forest Park neighborhood, not far from Holy Name.
My mother and father were very, very devout Catholics and brought us up in the Catholic way of life. Every Sunday was Mass Day with suit and tie or coat and tie.
Bob's father was a captain in the Army Air Corps, part of the Greatest Generation. Kelliher graduated from Cathedral High in 1966. He had a job and took some night courses, but his future path was unknown.
Despite what's going on in the world, I was somewhat politically naive. And I also knew, however, that the draft was inevitable.
Bob enlisted in the Army in 1968 and was assigned as an infantryman with the 1st Air Cavalry Division. He was in the thick of battle and often helicoptered into enemy territory to engage the Viet Cong.
We would traverse through the jungle, we'd set up ambushes during the day, certainly ambushes at night. I saw the carnage, I saw what gunfire does to a human being. It's not pretty. I actually was shot out of a helicopter twice, once in my first tour and once in my second.
At 21, Kelliher attained the rank of sergeant and was the leader of a platoon.
I served with some of the finest men you could ever possibly imagine from all over the country. Our job was to take care of one another, which we did.
Kelliher's close friend was fellow radio operator Mark Nielsen from Idaho. Their unit was ambushed and Nielsen was shot in the face.
Blood everywhere. They got him in the nose. I picked him up and I ran with him for maybe 75 yards, 100 yards to the tree line. The bullets are flying around, and I said to myself, if they're going to kill Mark, they're going to have to kill me too. It's okay. I'm willing to die for my friend.
Kelliher's Catholic faith was always present. Bob carried a prayer of war card given to him by his mother.
And I wasn't praying for me. I was praying for my men.
During another ambush, Kelliher was in a firefight and noticed a soldier 20 yards away who had been hit face down in the mud.
It was this young Hispanic lad from Brooklyn, and I knew that the wound was fatal. I said, I will not let this young man die with his face in the mud. I will not let this young man die alone.
Although bullets were flying, Kelliher felt as if an invisible wall surrounded him.
I just held him, and his last words were, Donde esté mi madre? He called for his mother, and then he passed.
Bob and the medic lifted the soldier into the waiting medevac helicopter.
His face was covered in the blood and the mud, and I said to myself, the last vision was, this is the face of Jesus. And then that was it. He was gone. You know, that was a tough one.
So you saw Jesus' face?
Yeah, I did. Embrace the fact that you were with Christ when he died.
Kelliher's father visited Our Lady of Hope Church in Hungry Hill daily to recite the Latin words over the entrance.
In this place I give peace. And Father, being quite religious himself, drove by that church every single day without fail. And he would say that so that I would come home.
Kelliher re-enlisted for a second tour as an intelligence and operations advisor. Bob returned home in 1970 and married Margaret in November of '71. Kelliher couldn't figure out why he screamed and had nightmares every night, why he was filled with anger, sadness, and guilt.
My sister Mary and a few others felt that I need to go up to the VA hospital in Leeds for some therapy, if you will, post-traumatic stress disorder.
Kelliher got the help he needed from the VA and a psychiatric nurse by the name of George Kennedy.
He was a Korean War veteran, and he was an angel. He was one of my saviors. And I would go up every Thursday night without fail. If it wasn't for my wife and George Kennedy and family members, I wouldn't be here. If anyone has earned her way to heaven, it's Margaret.
Bob's recovery included sessions at Springfield's Vietnam Veterans Center, where he bonded with fellow vets. His involvement in the Cursillo movement increased his faith. Today, Bob still leads retreats. Kelliher had jobs with Bank of Boston and was a residential supervisor at the Hampden County Sheriff's Department's pre-release center. He also worked for the Springfield's Alternative High School, counseling troubled youth. He retired in 2005. Today, Bob keeps busy as a volunteer with the Read Aloud program and for the Bay State Veterans Hospice program. He faithfully sings that holy name despite health issues and still suffers from the effects of Vietnam's Agent Orange. In 2020, Bob's sister Judith, 12 years his junior, wrote a wartime PhD to answer her own questions about her brother's experience in Vietnam. It was cathartic for Bob as well.
You can recover from things like this. There is the opportunity to move forward, help others.
Bob is proud, having been named Wilbraham's Veteran of the Year in 2023, and he's never forgotten the men he served with. All of his brothers in arms from Vietnam are gone, including his buddy Mark Nielsen, who committed suicide after coming home.
We honor and respect and love those who are serving or who have served with honor and dignity. That's why every day is Veterans Day, as far as I'm concerned.
Bob Kelliher hasn't forgotten Vietnam, but he's learned to live again without the ghosts of the past forever haunting him. For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonic.
And Steve tells us that as soon as his health improves, Bob Kelliher hopes to get back to working with students at Mary Walsh School in Springfield in the Read Aloud program, something that he really enjoys. We all pray for his speedy recovery. Thank you so much for your service, Bob.